PT Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika adalah perusahaan distribusi produk-produk metalurgi dan material tahan panas terkemuka di Indonesia. Sistem manajemen logistik terintegrasi untuk menjamin pelayanan terbaik kepada pelanggan. Kami selalu siap menjaga kepercayaan Anda. Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika adalah perusahaan distribusi produk-produk metalurgi dan material tahan panas terkemuka di Indonesia. Sistem manajemen logistik terintegrasi untuk menjamin pelayanan terbaik kepada pelanggan. Kami selalu siap menjaga kepercayaan Anda.
Selamat pagi, selamat datang di acara webinar Foundry 4.0. Good morning everyone, welcome to our Foundry 4.0 webinar. Saya dengan Claudinia dari PT Pelita Promo Internusa mengucapkan terima kasih atas kehadiran para audiens semua yang telah bergabung di sini. I'm Claudinia and I would like to thank you everyone here for joining today's webinar. Dan saya ucapkan selamat datang kepada para pembicara dan moderator yang saya hormati, Bapak Erwan Yulianto, Chairman of APLINDO, Asosiasi Pengecoran Logam Indonesia. Selamat pagi, Pak Erwan.
Selamat pagi, Bu Claudi.
Bapak Iwan Lukito, Vice Chairman of APLINDO, Asosiasi Pengecoran Logam Indonesia. Selamat pagi, Pak Iwan.
Selamat pagi, Bu.
Mr. Christian Kleberg, Managing Partner, RGU Asia PTI Ltd. Good morning, Christian.
Good morning. My bahasa not so good. Good morning, Claudia. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Bapak Andre Manulang, Sales Manager of Industrial Equipment Division dari PT Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika, perwakilan RGU di Indonesia yang sudah mensupport acara ini. Selamat pagi, Pak Andre.
Selamat pagi, Bu Claudinia. Good morning, everyone.
Beserta tim dari Makmur Meta yang juga hadir di sini dengan Bapak Reza. Selamat pagi, Pak Reza.
Selamat pagi, Bu Claudi dan semuanya.
Bapak Sabah Saparian, Director of PT Yamaha Motor Parts Manufacturing Indonesia. Selamat pagi, Pak Sabah.
Selamat pagi, Bu Claudi, dan selamat pagi semuanya.
Bapak Arwan Alif Kurnia dari tim YPMI. Selamat pagi, Pak Arwan.
Hai, pagi semuanya. Ya, salam sehat.
Webinar Foundry 4.0 adalah salah satu acara dari rangkaian kegiatan Pameran Internasional Metal Technology dan Fabrication Technology Indonesia. Satu-satunya pameran di Indonesia yang didedikasikan untuk industri pengecoran, pemrosesan logam, teknologi casting, fabrikasi, dan solusi metalurgi. Kegiatan online kami kali ini merupakan kolaborasi bersama dengan APLINDO, RGU Asia PTI Ltd, the leading expert provider of digital platform solution for metal casting operation, PT Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika sebagai solusi total produk metalurgi dan material insulasi tahan panas juga memberikan inovasi dan update dari industri metalurgi. Serta PT Yamaha Motor Parts Manufacturing Indonesia yang akan berbagi pengalaman dan menampilkan live dari casting shop YPMI. Acara hari ini akan diawali dengan sambutan dari Bapak Erwan Yulianto. Bapak Erwan, waktu dan tempat saya persilahkan, Pak.
Terima kasih, Bu Claudi. Mr. Christian, let me speak in Indonesia. Allow me, please. Terima kasih. Ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Yang terhormat Managing Partner RGU ya, Pak Asia, Mr. Christian, and then Pak Direktur Yamaha Manufacturing Part Pak Sabah Saparian dan timnya, dan juga Pak Iwan Lukito selaku moderator acara ini, juga teman-teman dari Pelita Promo Internusa dan Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika ya, yang telah bersusah payah untuk menyelenggarakan acara ini, dan juga saya ucapkan terima kasih juga kehadiran seluruh peserta webinar pada acara Foundry 4.0 di acara ini. Segala puji syukur senantiasa kita ucapkan kehadirat Tuhan Yang Maha Esa yang telah melimpahkan rahmat dan berkahnya kepada kita semua sehingga kita bisa berkumpul di acara hari ini. Webinar pada hari ini seperti tadi sudah diterangkan oleh Bu Claudi adalah rangkaian kegiatan dari Internasional Metal Teknologi Indonesia ya, yang nantinya akan dilaksanakan tanggal 26 sampai 28 Oktober 2022 di CI Expo Kemayoran. Mudah-mudahan bisa offline ya, mudah-mudahan, karena harapan kita kalau kita lihat tren COVID yang sekarang sudah semakin membaik ya. Kemudian juga atas kerjasama antara APLINDO, Pelita Promo Internusa, dan juga Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika, sehingga tema yang kita angkat pada kali ini adalah Foundry 4.0. yang memperkenalkan digitalisasi industri 4.0 dan implementasinya di industri yang sekarang kita jalankan. Seperti yang Ibu dan Bapak ketahui, sekarang ini kita masuk di era VUCA, era yang terkadang sangat disruptif ya kalau kita tidak siap. Begitu juga yang terjadi di tempat kerja kita. Banyak sekali perubahan proses produksi untuk mencapai tingkat keefisienan yang paling tinggi. Siapapun yang tidak akan berubah pasti akan dikalahkan di dalam persaingan dalam industri akhir-akhir ini. Saya yakin Ibu dan Bapak ingin membuat tempat kerjanya menjadi lebih efisien. Sehingga webinar ini adalah salah satu tempat yang tepat untuk menambah ilmu, menambah knowledge tentang perubahan teknologi di sekitar kita. Mari, untuk tidak memperpanjang lebar, kita nikmati webinar ini. Semoga membawa manfaat bagi kita semua. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Monggo, Bu Claudi dilanjut.
Terima kasih Pak Erwan atas sambutannya. Selanjutnya acara akan saya serahkan kepada Bapak Moderator Pak Iwan Lukito. Sedikit perkenalan, Bapak Iwan Lukito kini menjabat sebagai Vice Chairman of APLINDO. Dengan latar belakang pendidikan Bachelor of Arts Economics from University of Michigan, beliau juga adalah Direktur dari PT Trieka IMAX, perusahaan yang bergerak di bidang pengecoran logam dengan spesialisasi material stainless steel dan high alloy. Waktu dan tempat saya persilahkan Pak Iwan.
Terima kasih Bu Claudi. Sebelumnya saya izinkan saya untuk mengucapkan salam sehat dan salam sejahtera untuk kita semua.
Oke.
Perkenalkan, nama saya adalah Iwan Lukito.
Pak Iwan, mohon maaf, suara Pak Iwan agak kecil ya Pak Iwan ya?
Oh, maaf.
Oke.
Sudah terdengar, Bu?
Oh iya, sekarang lebih jelas Pak.
Oke, maaf. Baik. Saya adalah Wakil Ketua Umum dari APLINDO, Asosiasi Pengecoran Logam Indonesia. Saya adalah moderator pada acara webinar Foundry 4.0 hari ini. Making Indonesia 4.0 adalah salah satu slogan pemerintah di beberapa tahun terakhir belakangan ini. Ini adalah dalam rangka menyambut era revolusi industri keempat. Nah, penerapan 4.0 dalam industri pengecoran logam menurut kami adalah salah satu hal yang sangat penting dan akan menjadi tren untuk dunia manufaktur ke depannya, karena memang salah satu keunggulan dari 4.0 ini adalah memberikan akses informasi dan data produksi yang bisa diakses dengan cepat dan tepat oleh lantai produksi. Nah, hal ini akan membantu tentunya dalam pengambilan keputusan yang cepat dan tepat dalam menghadapi era globalisasi yang di mana level kompetitif suatu industri harus bersaing di level dunia. Nah, salah satu kendala dalam penerapan 4.0 selama ini, specifically di Indonesia, adalah ketersediaan platform atau software 4.0 itu tersendiri, di mana secara umum di pasaran belum terdapat banyak opsi gitu, atau belum tersedia secara masif. Nah, pada hari ini harapan kita dapat mendapatkan informasi, mendapatkan sharing pengalaman mengenai 4.0, yaitu adalah beberapa paparan dari beberapa narasumber yang akan menyampaikan presentasi mengenai kemampuan salah satu software 4.0 yang khusus untuk industri pengecoran logam sendiri, dan juga kita mendapat kesempatan emas, kalau boleh saya sebut demikian, adalah live demo dari lantai produksi 4.0 salah satu world class manufaktur aluminium di Indonesia. Nah, untuk mempersingkat waktu kita hari ini, yang pertama adalah Miss Berg. Beliau sudah berpengalaman selama lebih dari 25 tahun dalam aplikasi digital industri pengecoran logam, dan beliau juga adalah founder dan managing director dari RGU Asia Private Limited, suatu perusahaan yang adalah bagian dari RGU GmbH Jerman yang sudah membantu lebih dari 320 foundry di dunia dalam menerapkan Foundry 4.0. Kemudian saya ingatkan sebelumnya, setelah presentasi pertama ini akan ada sesi tanya jawab. Presentasi berlangsung, mohon silahkan rekan-rekan bisa menyampaikan dalam chat. Dalam chat juga akan dibantu oleh rekan-rekan dari PT Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika selaku support dan representatif RGU di Indonesia. And without further ado, Mr. Christian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ivan. My pleasure. And hold on, I think my video is not on yet. Now it's on. There you are. Am I fully audible? Yes, am I fully audible?
Yes, Christian.
Oh, okay, very good. Just to make sure that I'm fully audible. Selamat pagi, one more time to everybody. I apologize, my Bahasa is not as good as yours, but I will try to improve, and please bear with me on that one. Without further delay, let me quickly share my screen straight away, and it should be possible to do that right now. Can you see the screen? Is it okay?
Yes, Christian.
Okay, very good, very good.
Yes.
So then I will minimize here and I go into my presentation mode, and it should be possible that you see it now. So go into, yeah, I believe you can see the screen in full force. And yeah, everybody, welcome to this webinar about digital transformation solutions in metal casting operations, Foundry 4.0. It's a very important aspect that I must say thank you very much to my friends at Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika to help me to organize with people together with PPI and APLINDO to host this webinar. It's important because it is now the new trend that the foundry industry or the metal casting industry in general also learns about what does it mean to move away from being dangerous, difficult and dirty to becoming digital, dynamic and different. And that's exactly what we are talking about here today. But before we do that, a quick one about memory lane. So we have to look into evolution and what has to do with that. I believe some of you remember this kind of telephone not too long ago, and it was replaced with something like that. Who had one of these? I believe some of you did have one. Eventually the flip phone came, and of course the iPhone. Since 2007 only iPhones are available, as you can see here, and today we are even doing retro phones. But what has that to do with what we are talking about today? It has to do with a very important keyword: innovation. And innovation means also in Foundry what we are talking about on 4.0. Now, the topic of today was metal casting 4.0 innovation via digitalization. And it's extremely important that I'm in a position to show you what is that, why should I do this, how do I do it, when and where do I start, who can help, what misconceptions prevail. So what is wrong in the understanding of the whole undertaking. A quick one about myself, Christian Kleberg. I'm 58, married, have 2 children. I'm since 2015-16 independent expert in digital transformation, have more than 27 years of experience in this one. We have our own company and we are the exclusive digital solution provider only for Foundry. So we really focus on this area very much exclusively. Yeah, it's about understanding history. It's about understanding what happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 10s after the millennia change. And then, of course, now the 20s, where we are talking about a digitalization intensive age. And we can see here everywhere where there are emerging technologies come together, there are new perspectives. And we see that sustainable growth is areas available where innovation and digitalization actually prevails. And not to forget, today, right now, we are all coming together in our event. It's an e-conference and it's a digital event by the end of the day. So we are accepting digitalization already in our private lives. How can we do that in our professional lives, in the Foundry? we must also not forget Indonesia has already started a fourth revolution, but Indonesia is really in a transition period right now. And there are a couple of slides I'd like to share with you one more time. They are well known already from the Ministry of Industry, but just as a reminder, making Indonesia 4.0 is nothing new, but we have to understand where are we and how do we proceed. A quick recap about the four industrial revolution. As you probably remember, the first one was the general industrialization. The second one was about automation. The third one was the introduction of computerizations. And then now we're looking into the so-called deployment of cyber physical systems. We will explain a little bit more what does that actually mean. And by the end of the day, when we talk about Industry 4.0, it seems to be, it's not a product, it is a solution, but it has a lot of facets. And these facets we have to grab and we have to understand what do they mean for Foundry. And in the end of the day, in short, it's all about data, data, and again, data. So talking about industrialization, or rather Industry 4.0, where are we standing? This is a slide from an event BC, before COVID. Unfortunately, I don't have anything latest. So in the last 2 years, I don't think it has much changed. As you can see, Germany, Singapore, very much at the forefront, followed by South Korea on close third. Thailand, place 18, Malaysia, 21. Indonesia, a good 26, way above many other countries. So you're on the right track. That's positive. And we have to work more on this one with the industry so that we ensure you don't lose out. Now, where does this whole 4.0 actually come from? It's a German-born thing. The German government many years ago decided together with the industry to find out how can we revolutionize our manufacturing industry. As you know, Germany is an export world champion, still is, and has a very strong manufacturing industry. And for them, it is very, very important to understand how do we move away from traditional ways of doing it to modern ways of doing it. And this is how 4.0 was actually born many years ago. Now, let us go now into the metal casting industry, understanding what Foundry 4.0 actually means, digital foundry, what's the vision, how do we bring man, machine, material, operations, and data into standardized software platforms, and how do we look at it from a holistic point of view. So it's about understanding 4.0 for metal casting operations. Yeah, a quick one about our company actually. RGU Asia Pacific is operating since January 2017, and we have become the leading supplier of digital solutions for metal casting operations for foundry, but also for heat treatment and steel mills and aluminium smelters. And we are a joint venture between the RGU Germany and our Singapore organization. And we have our own company in India itself. And we have about 85 specialists globally and more than 320 installations and projects done already. And we have distinguished partners, especially in Indonesia. Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika. Pak Andre will be happy to support you. Yeah, many customers of ours, from very, very small to very, very large. So it's not about the size that matters, it's about a digital mindset that matters. And let me explain you why. And we have in Asia Pacific, since January 2017, already acquired 18 clients. And that's a very good success rate, I must say, because it takes time to implement technology on 4.0 level. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, digital solutions for the heavy industry, casting, of course, forging, steel mills. It's about production, it's about planning, it's about controlling, it's about sourcing, it's about big data. And it's about understanding how can new technologies on the 4.0 level be integrated in an environment, as you can see, that can be hostile. And that's the major objective we have to understand. And that's the major objective on what we're going to talk today. So it's about mindset. And we have to understand, first of all, what is the mindset? So many say it requires big budget, only big companies can afford it. Many say we do not have the time and the resources to do it. Many say it has the big equipment, R&D, automation, and sophisticated software. Many say our company is so small, no need to talk about it. And many say it will take a long time to affect us, so why bother? all that is wrong, outright wrong. And let me explain you why. Because we will have a lot of challenges to overcome, and these challenges are actually difficulty in extracting and transfer the data on one platform. The challenges are integration of hard and software between different suppliers. The challenges are the rise of cyber threats. For example, ransomware attacks. It's happening already. The challenges are the speed of how new technologies are emerging. And the challenges are the lack of knowledge of standards. So when we know what is the mindset, when we know what are the challenges, then we are in a position to overcome these and have an understanding, better understanding, so that we can move forward and create a solution that works. Let me get you right onto the foot. Let me explain what it actually means between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. So digitization is a very simple thing. You change from paper fax to email. Most of you have done that already. Digitalization means you're using new technologies in a business model. And of course, you do things in a different way. For example, digital sourcing or buying. And digital transformation means you are using the complete technologies to change your organization. And of course, you ban certain things. For example, no more Excel files. And that's actually the most difficult thing when you want to change the organizational model. Now, having said that, let me explain you a little bit also about our company and what we do really. Apparently, first of all, we are consultants. So we have a fundamental understanding of the industry. Where do we work? How do we work? We have our own bespoke software system. We call it FRP Base and FRP Compact. And at the core of this software system is a PPC, a production planning and controlling mechanism that works in its core area as a manufacturing execution system, MES. And we are applying what we call a digital twin technology. I'll explain that in a minute. Of course, we speak your language, we know your operations, and we believe software plus good consulting is success for you. Now, another technology, and we'll come back to that one a little bit later one more time, is about our melting shop solution. And the melting shop is in any environment we are talking about: foundry, steel, smelters, even heat treatment. The melt shop is the area where the biggest cost driver is. So the question is always, how can we digitalize that one? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. And you won't believe it, how much potential savings are available in that particular area. Now, having said about digital twin, what is a digital twin when you apply that in a metal casting environment? The digital twin, as per definition, is a virtual representation that serves as the real-time digital counterpart in form of a physical object or process. Now, in metal casting, this is the process from core, mold, melt, pouring, shake out, fettling, machining, heat treatment, packing, until you send out the parts via dispatch. And of course, there are variations. Different processes means different areas. And all these things can be digitally replicated. And we call that a resource plant inside our bespoke FRP software platform. When we use this information, when we can establish this information, we can use it for lots and lots of good things inside an organization, and we can make things transparent. Now, what is a resource plan? Apparently, it's a combination of a lot of items. And it's a combination of the item master, the tool and patterns utilized, the operations, the BOMs, and ultimately, as a byproduct, the understanding on how much does it cost to make a part. And that is a very, very important aspect. And this resource plan technology, this digital twin technology, is applicable throughout the whole operation of a metal casting environment. Now, we, of course, use this information especially for the visualization of KPIs. And this is something I must admit, I don't see much in foundries today. Foundries do not think about their KPIs. They do not see what happens in the near future, in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks. Apparently, there's technology again available that allows them to see items and that allows them to move to the future. For example, understanding in 3 weeks down the road, do I have a problem in my fettling shop? Yes or no? Do I have enough resources? Is my capacity overutilized? And so on and so forth. So understanding these areas means better planning, means better optimization, means cost savings, means higher productivity. And if we deploy such technology, we are on the well-known track of becoming 4.0. So it's really, really one facet of many facets. So here we have an example showing fettling shop bottleneck versus capacity versus utilization weeks ahead when orders are booked. So it's important for the PPC person to reschedule certain orders and certain activities. So understanding FRP means understanding the different levels from PLC all the way to the business intelligence. And these different levels we can cover. And this is why we are working on a very comprehensive basis to make sure that the entire organization from the shop floor all the way to the top management understands there is something in for you. We are extremely Foundry specific, as you can see here in the screenshot from the software system. And apparently these Foundry specifics are highly dedicated to the metal casting environment. We are very proud to have that because it works fantastically well in metal casting itself. Now, having said that, it's apparently that we have better planning and that requires data. As I mentioned that already before, it's about data, and software supplies data. So we have to deploy more software, and we have to understand what shall we not do. So let me highlight to you again, and I mentioned that in the early stages, about the misconceptions. Now, the first misconception is the top management should not be involved. No, the top management must initiate such project, and they must be the leader in that one. If the top management doesn't say anything, no way of doing it. So it's very, very important that top management initiates digitalization projects per se. Of course, all love modern solutions, but not all can live up to it. Industry 4.0, Foundry 4.0 means you have to maybe change certain things. Overcoming this change means resistance. Data transparency supports employee transparency. The question is, are you ready for that? Why change versus what benefits? So that's also something you need to answer yourself very clearly. Digitalization means the IT guy can take over it. That's very wrong. You need a digitalization project manager, ideally somebody from the shop floor even. The shop floor buy-in is paramount. PPC, a digital twin technology, is always a good start. But again, the IT guy is only the supporting person, not the main guy. The shop floor doesn't need it. That I heard many times. Actually, the shop floor buy-in, as I mentioned just now, is paramount. Shop floor is where the data treasure box is. And shop floor is involved or should be involved from day one. That's important. Big data, we mentioned that, is only for big companies. That's nonsense. We're looking into small and medium-sized, even micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. They all qualify. Big data is everywhere, and big data is big money if you harvest it correctly. And I will come back to this one, but that's what happens in reality. A lot of companies still do paper logging. Are you doing that? If you say yes to this, well, then you better think about it. How do we change this towards a digital operation? And yeah, that is something I would love the most. We have an ERP system, means we are digital. That's, in my view, the #1 classic misconception. Shop floor many times neglected. There's no integration done. What you cannot measure, you cannot control. Very simple. And if Excel prevails, you are just not digital at all. Period. Live with it. And that's what we have to really learn about it. Now, understanding this means understanding workflows. Workflows means you have sales offer, we have a resource plan, we need cost calculation, we have tool and better management, we need to book orders, we do a production scheduling, we need to understand from the shop floor what happens. Ultimately, we need to display the data, we do quality tests, shipping orders, invoices, and certificates until we ship the item. And understanding this means we understand the company processes, we understand the feedback stations, we understand what overview is required. We want to make the foundry and metal casting environment systematic and ultimately resulting in better quality at work and business. So this is very, very important because without that one, we are not able to structure the Foundry 4.0 activities. Now, a foundry may look like this. For example, you have a molding line, you have a melt shop, you have a pattern area, you have a core shop, and there may be some other subsequent machining and cleaning and heat treatment and packaging and dispatch activities. Now, a foundry can also look like this, structured with a computer in every area where there are what we call dedicated feedback stations. And these dedicated feedback stations in a computer are then centrally serving the FRP system. We do an automatic resource planning, which means digital twin deployment and PPC and scheduling, and everything is fully integrated. It is possible, and I will show you in a few examples how it is possible. Now, let's look into these examples right away: digitalization, integration, and automation. Now, I mentioned that one already. What is it? Where do I start? What can I do? And why should I do it? That's maybe the even more question. Why should we do that? Number one, we talk about traceability, transparency, productivity, and efficiency. We need to increase that. We talk about easy to adapt, fast changing world. The IT world is changing almost daily. We need, of course, look into the profit margins when costings are involved. And we have to stay competitive with less waste. So that's major reason why this is such an important topic in today's manufacturing environment. Yeah, ultimately, we want to eliminate inefficiencies. And we have to also understand Foundry 4.0 is new and uncharted territory for every foundry. So innovation is important. We have to understand there are no standards or standard solutions, no blueprints. Again, innovation is important. We have to also understand that different processes, organization, setup require multiple and flexible approaches. Again, innovation is important. And there is no value of experience. You cannot buy 4.0, one box, not possible. So innovation is important. And we have to also understand it's new, no matter what you do. And every industrial revolution has its own difficulties and, of course, own prevailing ideas and innovation areas. And remember, we mentioned about industrial revolution number one. Of course, imagine 300 years ago, somebody was talking about we had a manual weaving loom, buy a electric weaving loom. Nobody would buy that. So again, it's the same thing. In metal casting, we are very traditional. We have to overcome these traditions and have to move things to new areas. So before I come to the examples, it's one last very important question. Why is a casting such a special process? And we even have here some Bahasa words, so it's easier for you to understand. And the reason why is because the product, which means the casting product, is created from a liquid. And it moves through all production and forms all production resources, labor, machinery, material, what they have to do. That is why the casting is such a special process. And when we do this kind of moving across the line of all the areas, then of course the part is collecting data, and these technical values and commercial values are collected and tracked back to the product. And that is actually what Industry and Foundry 4.0 is all about. It's about live product data management. The question is, can you do it? Do you have the means to do that? Of course, it requires understanding, it requires software, it requires a lot of other areas. And yeah, it's about, again, the data and the requirements for the foundry. So we have to put things on common platforms. And that's the idea. Database, data analytics, data visualization, and so on, so that you can make data-driven decisions. That is the idea here we have understood. Okay, now we go into real life examples existing in the foundry. Talk about biometric camera-supported systems. Here you can see an example. That's a mold imprint. It's a picture. It's a picture of a mold in a molding line. And apparently, the camera identifies any faults in the mold and lock the molds for pouring automatically, because it is comparing biometrically the actual mold with a target value, which is an ideal mold. So they have set a standard, that is what the mold should look like. And if there's any defect visually seen, the camera will detect that and automatically block this mold from pouring. So you don't pour rejects. A very smart solution, works fantastically well. One of our customers in Europe. And all the process data of the mold is stored in a database, so that later you can find, or you can enable, retrospective analysis of fault. So we're talking about real learning, process control, and of course, save money accordingly. Another example is about understanding OEE. What is that all about? Meaning, what casting machine has what availability, what performance, what quality, or understanding different production lines. For example, line 1, less energy consumption, more output. Line 2, more energy consumption, less output. Why is that so? So it's about, again, the data these production lines produce. Or it's about understanding, for example, downtimes by a stack category. This, by the way, is an example from a customer of ours in Singapore. And we have done a really fantastic job there many, many years ago, where we are tracking all the downtimes by stack category. And it's a Dynamic Foundry in Singapore. And we had a 2.5 days downtime reduction in 2019 versus 2018 at approximately Singapore dollar 5,000 per hour. That was $300,000 savings in productivity improvements. And this is ongoing. So that you can see, if you are able to capture just purely downtimes and improve on them by better planning, better maintenance, you are able to increase productivity. Or we can see here various dashboards in terms of understanding how do we visualize data, how do we visualize the KPIs. It could be anything. It could be the manufacturing item. It could be the order items. It could be the offers. It could be the rejects. It could be the quality. It could be the production date, anything. And of course, it could also be the understanding of raw materials. Right now, we are in a situation that raw materials are really shooting through the roof. Certain raw materials is extremely expensive, and foundries are complaining left, right, and center. Now, when we know this, we have to again apply data analytics. And we can, for example, say, let's use the raw material scenario manager. Let's look back in the last 3 years. What has happened in terms of trends, and what trend do we have right now? And we immediately can extrapolate that one into the future. And we can really predict if the raw material trend is as such. We know precisely when our pricing is no longer adequate. So we can adapt to that one. So again, that is another industry Foundry 4.0 solution that can be easily deployed by many items. Or we are looking into the planning of a melt shop, multiple furnaces, multiple molding lines, multiple energy consumptions, and melt readiness. So here again, this is a very smart way on how multiple furnaces are serving and of course supporting multiple molding lines in an automotive foundry environment, as an example. Or we're looking into core shops, again, connecting the core shop digitally to the software, making sure you have everything enabled and understanding that in the core data collected, so that you have the core data itself, you have the feedback stations, you have the overview, you look into the core shop efficiency, and of course you can then deploy cost reduction items. Or another example, here you can see very clearly, yeah, the guys put the cores manually into the mold. Nothing else we can do right now, but look at it very carefully. The core trays, each of them has a barcode attached to it. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 core trays. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 barcodes. So the guy is here really scanning every time he's touching a core. The core is linked to the mold, and the system knows precisely what happens. What do we do here? We, of course, tag all the cores, and we are then track everything in the system. And we, of course, understand the dryness of the cores. The core and corresponding mold data is being saved. And ultimately, only the cores with the right dryness, right hardness are placed in the mold thanks to the RFID and barcode system. So there is never a wrong core in the mold. And that ensures quality to the highest standards. Or here, a feedback station. This picture already, look at the monitor very clearly, almost 15 years old. 15 years old. So 15 years ago, in some companies, people were reporting directly into a computer system. Or we have here paperless reporting. Of course, we have identifiers, and we have direct feedback stations into computer systems. This is another customer of ours in Singapore as well. Unfortunately, the foundry has closed down this year, so this is a little bit an obsolete picture, but never mind. When they were operating, that's what they were doing. It's a foundry, as you can see, and the worker is feedbacking with a touch screen straight into the FRP system what they were doing. So it was a direct understanding what happened every time, any day of the operation. And that transparency was absolutely priceless. It requires, of course, a digital mindset. And I think I have to say that one more time with a strong emphasis. Challenges for the foundry industry and moving to Foundry 4.0 means you have to adapt your mindset. And Industry 4.0, as I mentioned, is not a product, it's a solution with many, many facets. And in a metal casting environment, there are many areas we can look at. Here, now an example, a couple of slides from one of our customers in India. Uno Minda is a die casting operation, so it's something slightly different, but they work extremely new in a new environment. For example, they have changed the complete data traction and data recording from a traditional way, as you can see here on the left-hand side, to a very, very modern way with directly monitoring pictures, or rather direct monitoring inputs, and they are able to check everything in their own language. So it's possible, not an issue at all. Or they have dashboards created, rejection of summaries, work center-wise rejection, model-wise rejection, defect-wise rejection. So they have this data on an online system in a manufacturing control tower. I'll come to that in a minute. And for example, they also have their furnaces digitally connected. So the furnace parameters are being directly monitored to make sure that the furnaces work in an optimal bandwidth. This is very, very important in aluminium, because if the temperature drops too much, the castings are getting bad. So this is also very, very important. Or, and this is the latest we are doing right now, they are tracking and tracing each individual part. So every wheel, every part they make, it receives a QR code, and then with the QR code, they are able to track and trace every part in its individual station. Still an ongoing project because we are not there yet, but already very strongly in the making. So traceability is an issue. Or a digital understanding of part inspection station, that you know precisely what defect type has been created. And these defects are then categorized and monitored, and later on analyzed what is happening on the shop floor. Last but not least, and that is the future happening today, having a manufacturing control tower, a control room where you sit and you see the complete operation in all its stages online in real time. And this is the future of metal casting operation. And this is what every foundry should have, so that you understand what are we actually doing in reality, and comparing always the planning with the actual. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, and I come almost to the end of my presentation, what about melting? In melting is something we always emphasize that should be digitally controlled. The question is again, why should we do that? And here again, the melt shop is the least explored digital area in every metal casting environment. And we always say big data means big money. So the question is, what can I improve? Of course, you need big data. How efficient is the process? Of course, you need big data. And it goes on and on and on. So what happens if a reject charge is being created? Or do I have, every time I do a heat, every time I do a melt, do I receive exactly what I want? Again, it requires big data. And you saw that a minute ago, I'm repeating it. Manual control, paper control, or paper logging, that is not big data at all. The foundry where I collected these sheets I asked them, what do you have? What happens with these paper logs? And they say, nothing. And I say, exactly, nothing. So if you don't harvest the data, you will not utilize it, you will not improve. We have to put things into platforms, into databases. And that's exactly the point. In melting, it's calculating faster the end result, means time savings. It's securing better melt quality, less material. Ensure melt recipe is preserved, consistency. And ultimately, even what-if scenarios are possible, material improvement. And all this and much, much more leads to these famous dollar and monetary improvements. That is not science fiction. Let me give you an example from a German foundry. Now, another one. They have deployed our melt system. And over a period of time, they were able to bring power costs down by 21%. And I would say that is pretty significant, because when you can reduce your power consumption today, that's a direct impact on the environment, that has a direct impact on your CO2 footprint and many, many others. So there you are. And that's why digitalization in melting is just as important as the rest of all the operations. Yeah, coming back to Foundry 4.0, automation, let us understand what is really important. Apparently, the digital twin in metal casting production works. The digital twin we can absolutely deploy. Knowing where a part comes from means traceability. Knowing where it is means transparency. Knowing where it goes to, trackability. And knowing precisely, and I repeat the word precisely, how much it costs to make it is absolutely priceless. Now, we mentioned that already. It's about manufacturing control towers, overviews, automation, and data collection, and making that this data is in the correct environment. And it's important that, of course, the foundry has to be controlled by means of IT and digital databases. Excel ERP is way not sufficient. Proper details of resource plans, meaning digital twin, for example, in FRP system, of all the casting in its stages, melt, tools, core, machining, must be known. Otherwise, impossible to reach Foundry 4.0 levels. We have to make sure Foundry intelligence is deployed. The display availability, proactive worker information before they commit a mistake on shop floor. We have shown you what works. Sensor machine integration to act autonomously for predefined situation and criteria. And ultimately, real-time Foundry data availability on mobile, tab, laptop for better traceability, quick decisions, avoid damages, rejections. That is absolutely paramount. Yeah, Foundry today, still very much manual, very much analog, lots of paper, and very, very slow. Look into your own operations, you will understand what I'm talking about. Not everybody is so sophisticated like our friends here of Uno Minda in India. So how does FRP works? Apparently, it's all about integration of all the areas, understanding all the computerization items, making sure everything is interconnected on one common platform, and ensuring that you have everything in a software system. You work digitally enhanced, of course. And at the end of the day, it's about understanding when the customer calls, where are my parts? Well, you can just look up the system and then have a look at it and tell them they're on the way, because we are on track. So this is the easy way of doing it. But to get there is not that easy, but possible. It's about understanding how do we move it. So having said that, it's about working digitally enhanced. At last but not least, how much does it cost to become Foundry 4.0? Let me give you the answer in 1 minute's time. Before we do that, let me summarize one more time about Industry 4.0 in Indonesia. Indonesia is on the right track. As you can see here, this is from 2019. I have no charts from 2020 and 2021, apparently due to the COVID situation, but it can be updated. Indonesia has identified clear targets, and these targets are available. You can go to the Ministry of Industry and they have that available. And you can look into those targets and see what can we do in the next steps, in the next items. Indonesia has identified 5 industrial sectors. And these industrial sectors are very, very important to the country. We understand that, we support that. Absolutely. Foundry is a supporting sector. That's why Foundry is important as well. And Indonesia has also created very clear 6 steps of making Indonesia 4.0 in terms of implementation. So this is also an area that has already been identified. So there's nothing new we need to do. Follow this plan, and I believe Indonesia will become 4.0 also sooner than later. Indonesia also has identified certain pillars, and these pillars are clearly available. And we have to look into these ones one more time and one after the other so that we understand, are we on track or do we need to change the course? Indonesia has also identified one pillar, technology, very, very important for us as well, because we need to look into that one as well. And of course, the operational area. And here we have a clear understanding that the metal casting industry is part of this. And that means automatically we have to understand, where is the metal casting industry? Unfortunately, on a scale between 0 and 3, the metals industry in general, has scored the lowest amount of readiness for in Industry 4.0 in Industry 4.0 in Indonesia. However, the metal industry has the highest potential to digitalize and bring any country to 4.0 level, but unfortunately and currently the lowest drive into innovation and digital transformation. So I'm appealing everybody, if you are in the metal casting industry, in the metal industry, look into that one. It is helping the country, it is helping your organization, it's helping yourself to go into the right direction. Yeah, I came to the question, how much does it cost to do that? Actually, the answer is very simple. Can you afford not to do it? So any investment into digitalization, any investment into understanding of how we can go down the foundry or metal casting 4.0 level is an investment into your own future. It's an investment into your country. It's an investment into the organization and into in a better environment as well as better technology. Here are, last but not least, our top 10 tips. Don't jump into buying expensive solutions first. Know your people's skill set, limitations, know your current SOP levels. How many do you have? Break down into smaller segments, maybe into a department. Simplify and standardize before you digitalize. Ensure clear linkage between tasks and accountability. Start with smaller sections for pilot run. Learn from first success cases. Look for good collaboration partners. We volunteer if you want our services. And of course, buying software means nothing without support. Having said that, let me summarize one more time. We have to move the industry from dirty, dangerous, and difficult to digital, dynamic, and different. That's our mission, and that's what we want to do, understanding and looking at Foundry 4.0. If you need more information, have a look at our websites, send me an email, happy to support you, or contact our partner, Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika, Pak Andre. And with this, I would like to say terima kasih for your attention and terima kasih for being in a position to show you about Foundry 4.0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christian. That was a wonderful presentation, very clear. I think conclusion is we can see that actually the software and platform available from RGU is pretty advanced, which brings me to our question and answer session. And I think the first question that I would like to pass on to you is from Mr. Khairun from KUI. This is Komatsu Undercarriage Indonesia, which is a forging. They have a forging facility. His question is IoT. Do you have examples on IoT technology implemented on forging machines? And I think this is also a part of a personal question that I wanted to ask in because I saw in the presentation, there were examples of hardwares like biometric cameras implemented into by RGU. Is the services from RGU also include until turning all these machines into IoT?
Okay, we are a software company, so we supply the software. But of course, we have hardware partners, IoT partners. They supply the sensors, the corresponding interfaces that we can interconnect. So forging, I admit I did not put in a forging example. We have, of course, forging examples as well, because forging is also a hot process. You have to heat up something, and it works in a forging just very similar to a casting. You can deploy IoT sensors. The question is, what do you want to measure, and what data you want to collect, and what do you want to use the data for? Okay, so these are the three major simple questions that can be answered. And happy to support Mr. Kairun more. Please contact me directly or Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika. We can have an interactive dialogue about this one. Yes, examples are available. It's not as complicated in forging as it may be in, let's say, melt and casting, because you're not in the liquid stage. So you're just heating up, and then you have to press you have to supply the mechanical press. But it is possible, yeah. It's a good example. Thanks for asking. Hello, Ivan.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then the next question is from Mr. Daniel Setiadi. Company is from PT Aneka Gas. The first is he's asking for, do you have any data or examples of foundry optimization, especially for foundries that employ electric arc furnaces using argon degassing and oxygen lens equipments?
Yes, I didn't mention that in detail, but our FRP Melt software system can cater for that one as well. Because in the EAF, or the electric arc furnace, you do a lot of oxygen lancing as well as the argon degassing. And we have a digital way of doing that one, first in the planning method, but then of course with the charge calculation and in the post-charge calculation. So there's a lot of features and availability available. It becomes very technically detailed. I did not mention that right now in today's presentation, but yes, it's available in our FRP Melt as one of the features in the software. Happy to support further. Please contact me and of course Mr. Pak Andre from Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika, and then we can help you further on understanding how do we do that. By the way, in electric arc furnaces, there's a couple of more areas to look out for. But it will become too technical now if we follow that one at this very moment.
Okay. All right. I think another question is right now from Corrado Licata from IOMES, based in Hong Kong. The question is, how do you conjugate security and digitalization, or internet security, like the one you mentioned?
It's a very, very good question, I must admit, because data security is paramount in this environment. And if you have the if you want to have the competitive advantage, you must ensure your data is secured accordingly. So here we have a couple of areas where we work with our partners as well as customers directly. As I mentioned, the cybersecurity threats or cyber threats are happening already. We, for example, do not put our technology on cloud systems. We have a very particular reason, because many of our clients fear still of cloud system can be hacked. As a matter of fact, they can. And but when you're on premises on a what we call a fat server, things become a little bit more easier because you can protect these via firewalls and various other means. So definitely data security is paramount for us. Data security is paramount for our customers. You must not forget, we are talking about production data, and that can be a super competitive advantage if a foundry has this advantage by itself and does not share it to others next door. So that's very, very important. Yes, so data security for us is a super important topic on a daily basis.
Thank you. Maybe the final question for this session. What kind of hardwares or sensors that can be implemented? And second, what is the average timeline of a foundry turning from regular to a 4.0 foundry in your experience?
Okay, our hardware, so the hardware we deploy for our own software system is very minimal. It's just standard PC technology. There's no rocket science behind this. So that's an easy job. In terms of IoT devices and deployment of sensorings, today there is a variety of this available, and there's no preferred supplier from ours. Sensors work in a very simplistic way. Let's say you have an analog machine or you have a non-digital machine like a furnace, an old type. You apply a sensor on the electric cabinet, you know when it is powering, you know whether, so it's on off. It's a very simple digital signal. So you just know, okay, we are consuming energy, it's powered on, and things like that. And these signals can be interfaced directly. So there are standard interfacing available, not an issue at all. So sensoring and the connectivity, the hardware connectivity to the software system is an easier job. The other question, help me one more time, what was the second part of the question?
How long is the typical timeline to implement 4.0?
Anything between 1 week and 25 years. How about that? So having said that, no, let me make it this way. Okay, I have to counter question and ask, what do you want to achieve in, let's say, in a first level? What do you want to achieve in a second level? I think I have been very clear today. Going toward digitalization, Foundry 4.0 levels means it's a journey. You start with this first step. It's just like you want to travel from Jakarta to Singapore. What do? You step out of the house. You take the taxi to the airport, you fly over, and so on and so forth. So it's exactly the same thing. You start with the first step. If you are analog, you have to look into the first step. What is the first step? We, for example, say, okay, look into production planning and controlling. Look into your melt shop. There are things you can do. These are simple steps. There is no timeline. There's no. I cannot say it will take you 3 months or 3 years, but I can tell you, if you move to the right with the right partners into the right direction, it can go relatively fast if you look back maybe 1 year ago, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So we have customers of ours. They started during the pandemic in beginning of 21, and today they are on levels never seen before. We have other clients who are with us for 25 years, and they work in an environment you can just dream of. The one which I told you already about, this core dryness and the barcoding. Some of these clients have deployed these technologies for many, many years and even decades. So there is never too late to start. It's always, you're only too late if you don't change your mindset to go to that direction. So I cannot say it's 3 months or it's 3 years. It depends on what you want to achieve. Then we will know. But it can go relatively fast sometimes, depending on the individual area.
Okay. Thank you. So I can conclude that the software and the platform is readily available. Yes. With a lot of supporting systems.
Yes.
And also the other thing is there is no foundry too simple, too analog, or too 1.0 to prevent them from actually implementing the system. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's all in your own mindset, and even small steps are the right steps.
Okay. Very great. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Christian, I would like to close and allow me to continue on. Terima kasih sudah menyimak presentasi pertama. Sekarang perkenankan kita lanjut. Narasumber kita selanjutnya adalah juga seorang pakar yang sudah berpengalaman lebih dari 30 tahun di dalam industri pengecoran logam dan die casting. Beliau adalah lulusan program S1 dan S2 Electrical Communication di Tokyo, Jepang. Beliau sekarang menjabat juga sebagai Ketua Dewan Pakar Ikatan Alumni Habibie, juga Wakil Ketua Umum APLINDO bidang aluminium dan non-ferrous, dan kemudian tentunya beliau adalah Direktur Business and Development dari PT Yamaha Motor Parts Manufacturing Indonesia. Nah, oleh karena itu saya ingin mempersilakan kepada yang saya hormati, senior saya, Bapak Sabah Saparian. Waktu dan tempatnya saya persilahkan.
Oke, terima kasih. Suara saya terdengar, Pak?
Jelas, Pak.
Jelas ya.
Jelas Pak Sabah.
Selamat siang semua, sahabat APLINDO. Ya, salam sehat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pertama-tama terima kasih kepada PPI, Makmur Meta, serta APLINDO yang telah menyelenggarakan acara sharing seminar hari ini. Juga terima kasih kepada Ketua APLINDO, Pak Irwan sudah membuka tadi, juga Kepala Sekretaris Pak Irwan, yang sekarang menjadi MC kita, Bu Claudi, dan juga good afternoon, Mr. Christian Kleberg, sebagai pemateri kita hari ini. Hari ini, kami akan sharing tentang Foundry 4.0, ya, bagian rangkaian dari industri 4.0 yang diterapkan di pabrik kami. Ya, bukan berarti bahwa YPMI sudah dalam kondisi yang sempurna, tapi proses menuju ke arah sempurna. Saya, Sabah, sebagai Direktur YPMI akan mengangkat tema Toward Foundry 4.0, fokus pada YPMI Factory LVT in High Pressure Die Casting. Yang kali ini akan fokus kepada dua tema, ya, yaitu e-shop floor daily management system, atau yang kita biasa sebut Gemba daily management system. Yang kedua, traceability system, yang diikuti dengan information trouble route dan topologi dari smart factory tersebut. Baiklah. Oke. Baiklah, akan kami perkenalkan company profile perusahaan kami. Perusahaan kami PT Yamaha Motor Parts Manufacturing Indonesia yang berada di Karawang, di kawasan industri KSC, ya, yang seperti yang diketahui bahwa di sini banyak perusahaan otomotif seperti Toyota, Isuzu, dan Daihatsu. Kami di sini sudah 26 tahun berdiri, ya, dan area kami sekarang sudah sekitar 20 hektar lebih di area KSC ini. Juga kami adalah bagian dari anak perusahaan PT Yamaha Motor Jepang, ya, dan ini adalah suatu perusahaan PMA. Baiklah, kali ini yang kami akan jelaskan bahwa PT YPMI itu ada 3 bisnis sektor. Yang pertama adalah bisnis, yang kedua ada steel bisnis, yang berikutnya adalah supporting business. Di mana elemen bisnis ini kita membuat cylinder head dan lain-lainnya, dan juga steel business ini berupa gear IC, piston, dan lain juga part-part kecil untuk part function dari motor tersebut. Yang ketiga adalah supporting business. Ini yang supporting business seperti mold and dice, dan juga cutting tools yang mensupport Yamaha Group di Indonesia. Di dalam candle casting bisnis ini, kami mempunyai metode casting, ada 3 metode casting yang kami punyai. Yang pertama adalah LPDC. LPDC ini kami membuat produk berupa head cylinder head, cylinder tail. Ini cylinder head ini untuk roda 2 dan juga roda 4. Yang cylinder tail ini untuk outboard ataupun mesin tempel yang ditempelkan pada motorboard Yamaha. Berikutnya adalah HPDC, high pressure die casting. Ini kami membuat wheel dan rear arm. Berikutnya tadi adalah gravity. Gravity ini adalah wheel juga. Kita buat untuk motor-motor yang ya 1000 cc atau sekelas itu gitu. Sebagai awalan, ya, bahwa kondisi seluruh dunia diawali dari perubahan teknologi juga yang secara cepat, dan juga kita tahu bahwa global climate change juga mempengaruhi, pandemi COVID yang sekarang ini masih berlangsung juga, dan juga dalam dari tahun akhir tahun kemarin yaitu shortage-nya semiconductor. Mau tidak mau dan suka tidak suka bahwa kita sudah memasuki era VUCA, yaitu era volatile, uncertainty, complexity, dan ambiguity. Oleh karena itu kita harus beradaptasi agar bisa eksis. Lain tidak lain, kita harus beradaptasi sehingga kita eksis. Ya, tiba-tiba seperti ini di bawah ini adalah produksi kita turun karena COVID. Tiba-tiba produksi kita turun karena shortage semiconductor. Dan juga seperti yang di kanan bawah ini adalah di masa depan electric vehicle ini akan menggantikan IC engine, internal combustion engine. Di mana kalau kita lihat ICE ini akan semakin sedikit. Ini data ini kita ambil dari source dari Transportation Engineering, bahwa porsi yang biru ini akan semakin sedikit. Dan porsi dari yang hijau ini dan juga yang abu-abu ini juga akan semakin membesar. Oleh karena itu, ini menjadi suatu ancaman bagi perusahaan yang membuat part, terutama untuk ICE. Oleh karena itu, yang kami lakukan di YPMI adalah solusinya seperti ini. Yang pertama adalah proses dan cost innovation. Ini adalah must. Berikutnya adalah theoretical value thinking activity. Apa yang dilakukan theoretical value thinking activity ini adalah menghilangkan non-value secara maksimal dan menambah value berbasis teknologi dan riset. Yang ketiga adalah minimize behavior level agar bisa cepat beradaptasi saat demand menurun secara ekstrim. Semua terintegrasi dengan menggunakan tool, yaitu Smart Factory atau Digital Transformation. Jadi, Smart Factory itu ya hanya suatu tool, ya, hanya suatu tool. Ya. Agar dengan tool tadi, industri kita, ya pabrik kita menuju industri 4.0. Dan juga kali ini ya, khususnya kali ini kita membahas bagaimana Foundry 4.0 itu diterapkan tempat kami. Secara konkretnya di sini ada 6 activity pillars yang kami lakukan di tempat kami. Jadi 6 activity pillars ini akan dijelaskan lebih lanjut di bagian live nanti gitu. Di sini kami menjelaskan apa sih tujuan ataupun ultimate goal dari penerapan Smart Factory tersebut. Ya, sebagaimana kita ketahui bahwa ya, perusahaan kami menginginkan gitu, industri 4.0 tadi atau Smart Factory tadi berdampak pada peningkatan profit dan growth. Jadi ini harus satu must bagi kami gitu. Jadi tanpa Smart Factory kalau tanpa profit dan growth nanti tidak sustain gitu. Jadi melalui strategi ekspedisi toward 4.0 ini ya kami melakukan segala sesuatunya cepat dan akurat dalam mengambil keputusan. Di dalam Smart Factory ini kami membagi 3 zona. Ya, ada 3 zona di sini. Pertama aktual zona atau area. Pertama aktual area. Ya. Yang kedua cyber area. Yang ketiga manajemen area. Pada aktual area ini lah kita melakukan 6 pilar tadi. 6 pilar di sini. 6 pilar activity diterapkan yang merupakan integrasi data dari masing-masing proses. Di sinilah terjadi digitalisasi data tadi. Gitu. Nah, kalau ini terjadi digitalisasi data tadi, artinya Smart Factory ini tidak akan terjadi. Gitu. Dan yang kedua adalah cyber area. Jadi cyber area ini adalah kekuatan infrastruktur network yang stabil. Dan perusahaan kami dari 10 tahun lalu sudah membuat suatu gerakan, yaitu membuat suatu backbone data, agar data itu semua bisa terambil dan terkumpul dengan cepat di server kami, atau kan kita pakai cloud. Juga merupakan cakupan dari big data. Dan yang paling penting di sini adalah dari singgung sebelumnya, itu adalah cyber security. Nah, di sini firewall ini sangat menentukan. Kami berterima kasih juga ya, karena dari manajemen juga sudah melakukan banyak investasi di daerah network ini gitu. Jadi kalau Smart Factory tanpa cyber security itu akan sangat berbahaya. Berikutnya, di sini kita melakukan manajemen area. Di sini analisa data dan siklus manajemen 4M, man, material, methods, ya, dan PQCDSM, ya, yang secara otomatis dalam hal tertentu juga kita menerapkan di sini analisis dengan penerapan artificial intelligence dan machine learning. Dan sampel case-nya yang di sini adalah shop floor management system, dan yang traceability ini akan dijelaskan berikut melalui live show dari factory kami. Kami juga ya, dalam digital transformation ini, milestone kami itu harus selaras dengan headquarter atau Yamaha pusat gitu, agar resources kami dapat dimonitor secara global, dan kami berusaha untuk keep, akan tapi kendalanya banyak di lapangan, terutama mesin-mesin yang lama gitu, yang tidak adopt terhadap internet protokol, yang memerlukan treatment sendiri gitu, dan juga hal-hal lain yang bersifat teknis gitu. Juga agar kami selalu bisa bersaing, kami juga selalu melakukan inovasi teknologi ekspedisi yang seperti ini gitu. Sekarang di era EV, ya, seperti kita ketahui bahwa secara general berat baterai itu ya, itu sekitar 60% dari berat mobil gitu, ataupun berat motor lebih gitu. Dan wajib harus diet, pengurangan berat struktur body dari besi ke aluminium. Ya, oleh karena itu kami juga sekarang mengembangkan ya, inovasi lightweight structure parts. Dan ini must gitu, karena bisa digunakan untuk engine mounting dan battery case. Dan kami strong growth ke arah sana itu untuk mencari opportunities dari HPDC kami gitu. Nah, ini 6 pilar tadi yang saya jelaskan tadi, dan kita fokus kepada traceability kali ini, dan juga shop floor management control system yang kami sebut IOSOB.
Siap, Pak Sabah, Pak Arwan. Terima kasih untuk presentasi dan live demo dari shop floor Yamaha. Menurut saya sangat komprehensif dan kata singkatnya mungkin menakjubkan ya Pak ya, di mana Bapak sudah implementasi 4.0, banyak data yang terserap, very big data, tapi big data tersebut secara real time update dan membantu decision making proses dan action ya Pak ya di lapangan. Saya rasa hal itu semua juga menunjukkan satu fakta juga yang cukup amazing Pak, di mana pembuatan velg ternyata cuma 60 detik, jauh lebih cepat daripada proses ganti velgnya sendiri Pak.
Ya. Disitulah apa namanya daya saing kita Pak. Jadi produk kita ini tidak kalah kompetitifnya dari produk Cina. Ya. Dan juga apa namanya mutunya ini diekspor ke seluruh mancanegara, termasuk apa namanya Amerika Selatan, Brazil, Eropa dan seluruh dunia gitu. Dengan harga yang sangat kompetitif.
Kalau boleh mungkin pertanyaan pertama, apakah ada quantitative value-nya Pak setelah penggunaan sistem ini, misalnya dalam berapa persen productivity sudah meningkat gitu Pak, atau yang achievable?
Ya, sudah barang tentu masing-masing area sudah punya apa namanya KPI tertentu Pak ya. Tapi kalau kita lihat ya kita ngitungnya tuh berapa sih yang kita bisa keluarkan apa namanya per jam gitu ya. Jadi biasanya kalau kita per jam itu ataupun per shift ataupun per hari gitu loh. Kalau kita hitung itu apa namanya yield-nya itu bisa per satu menit 60 detik itu satu piece, artinya tuh ya kan 1 jam itu 60 ya. Kalau dia netnya itu misalnya dari secara quantity, productivity dari trouble mesin itu sekitar kita bisa mengeluarkan itu sekitar produk sekitar 58 piece produk oke per jam gitu loh. Ya.
Oke, baik. Mungkin ini menyambung juga Pak, ada pertanyaan dari Bapak Wahyu Subroto, Komatsu.
Waduh, itu guru saya itu.
Ini mungkin menyambung juga ada dari komen Mr. Christian tadi mengenai bagaimana cara menciptakan iklim untuk penerapan Foundry 4.0 ini Pak.
Jadi begini Pak, budaya di Gemba itu sangat simpel sebenarnya. Ada standar dan konsistensi, gitu. Ya kan? Kita buatkan standar dan asal konsistensi. Kalau belum ada standar ya kita buatkan standarnya. Kalau tidak ada standar, sudah ada standar, artinya konsistensi tadi dijaga gitu loh. Dengan apa namanya Hyojun Sobi tadi yang kita sebut itu adalah shop floor management system yang kita berbasic dari gitu loh. Di situ banyak sekali Pak. Jadi pemastian atau konsistensi 4M tadi ya. Pemastian 4M dan respon terhadap changing point kalau itu berubah dari 4M tadi itu semua ada di dashboard Hyojun Sobi tadi gitu. Jadi ini memang membumi gitu loh, apa namanya pengecekan safety, pemastian PQC-DSME-nya tadi itu semua ada di dashboard gitu loh. Termasuk apa namanya pemastian apakah operator tadi sehat atau tidak, dan kalau memang ada operator yang sakit itu bagaimana apa namanya layout dari masing-masing operator gitu. Sehingga operator yang tidak punya kompetensi itu tidak bisa masuk ke line tersebut gitu loh. Dan itu di dashboard juga dia bisa melihat kompetensi ataupun skill masing-masing dari apa namanya operator tadi. Itu Pak. Jadi memang budaya itu ditentukan oleh konsistensi juga gitu. Standar dan konsistensi tadi gitu. Ya. Dan ini yang kita bangun ini sangat sangat maraton gitu lah. Dan kita sebut Hyojun Sobi tadi itu ada, kalau kita sebut itu ada 5 level gitu. Ada 41 item gitu. Dan 41 item itu sangat berhubungan gitu dengan item-item lain. Ya. Entah itu pemastian 4M, responsif terhadap changing point 4M tadi, ataupun pemastian PQC-DSM tadi. Sehingga gitu apapun yang di lapangan itu cepat respon kita terhadap masalah, dan produktivitas pasti meningkat gitu kan. Kalau produktivitas meningkat, insya Allah tadi growth tadi akan pasti akan bukan hanya impian gitu. Masih Pak, cukup.
Siap. Baik Pak. Kalau gitu saya boleh lanjut Pak, sehubungan dengan tadi. Ada pertanyaan dari Bapak Johannes
Ya,
Quick. Kalau saya tidak salah ini PT Karya Hidup Sentosa ya Pak ya di
ya, ya,
Jogja,
ya, ya.
casting cast iron. Pertanyaannya adalah berapa banyak manpower yang terlibat Pak dalam effort penerapan pengembangan Foundry 4.0 sistem ini, dan apakah melibatkan tim eksternal atau dari internal Yamaha saja?
Ya. Ini kita melakukan smart factory ini, kenapa bisa terjadi? Karena kita pada waktu COVID ini, gitu, ini kita anggap sebagai berkah gitu loh. Produksi kita menurun, staf kita banyak. Oleh karena itu saya menarik semua staf-staf yang minat terhadap IT gitu. Jadi saya dari warehouse saya tarik sebagai IT programmer, dari tempat lain pun saya tarik sebagai IT programmer gitu. Dan bedanya tempat kita kalau MIS itu mengatur infrastruktur dan tadi security. Tapi untuk smart factory ini kita membuat satu grup lain gitu loh. Ya, kita dari sini ada untuk yang smart factory untuk untuk programmernya itu ada 4 orang programmer, dan untuk automation itu ada sekitar 7 orang gitu lah. Dengan 4 orang programmer ini tadi ya kita optimalisasikan. Bagaimana ya? Pertama pada waktu COVID awal dulu 2020 itu kita suruh belajar semua ya. Suruh belajar Python, coding dan segala macamnya. Juga termasuk belajar tentang security dan segala macamnya. Oleh karena itu ya kita sekarang programmer kita sudah bisa melakukan program sendiri gitu loh, tanpa bantuan dari pihak luar. Tapi sudah barang tentu ada yang kecil-kecil ya, codingan kecil itu bisa kita keluarkan untuk membantu kita supaya cepat gitu. Tapi pada dasarnya analis itu kita sendiri yang melakukan. Kenapa? Karena kita mengerti sendiri budaya kita seperti apa, standar kita seperti apa, dan budaya kita seperti apa, dan seperti apa kerumitan di dalam internal kita gitu, sehingga itu bisa terlaksana. Sudah barang tentu ya inilah tadi yang dimaksud oleh Mr. Christian tadi. Saya tidak mengatur sampai ke programming, tapi saya meminta mereka untuk memberikan solusi gitu. Dan kalau mereka tidak bisa memberikan solusi, artinya mereka perlu belajar. Kalau perlu belajar, mereka menunjukkan mereka perlu belajar kemana gitu. Dan itu saya fasilitasi. Dan juga kalau perlu hardware, kita berikan yang terbaik gitu. Jadi yang kita memberikan resource yang terbaik buat mereka untuk berkembang gitu. Itu saja Pak Iwan.
Siap.
Ada mungkin sekarang berapa? 8 mungkin Pak ya. Itu nggak termasuk dari MIS ya. Ya, tadi. Ya.
Luar biasa Pak effortnya. Ini ada komen garis miring pertanyaan juga Pak. Kebetulan ini dari Pak Dadang Asikin, Ketua Gama ya Pak ya. Beliau menanyakan, memberi komen dashboard proses yang ditampilkan luar biasa di dalam mengontrol seluruh proses produksi yang bisa dilihat dan dievaluasi secara real time. Nah, dalam anggota Gama ada salah satu asosiasi yang mengerjakan fabrikasi berdasarkan customized product, seperti membuat pressure vessel yang besar dan kompleks. Kira-kira apakah sistem monitoring seperti yang dilakukan Yamaha bisa diadopsi atau diterapkan, dan kira-kira hal-hal apa saja yang harus diperhatikan? Mungkin senada Pak, saya sambung ya Pak Sabah, dari Pak Holik Fatoni, PT Komatsu juga, strategi apa yang dilakukan untuk menerapkan digitalisasi ke operator bersama waktunya, kemudian juga apakah corporate culture atau digitalisasi dahulu Pak yang difokuskan gitu, kira-kira seperti itu.
Jadi kalau dashboard itu memang ini budaya yang kita anut tadi itu di dashboardkan Pak. Nah, jadi memang kalau memang belum punya budaya, artinya kita harus punya sistem dulu untuk membuat budaya tadi gitu loh. Seperti basic budaya itu 5S misalnya, atau basic productivity TPM, dan itu digabung ya akan menjadi suatu sistem untuk menjaga konsistensi productivity di lapangan gitu lah. Jadi kalau belum punya budaya, sebaiknya kita punya budaya dulu gitu. Nah, dan sekaligus untuk agar digitalisasi tadi bisa berlangsung lebih mudah gitu loh. Ya kita melakukan pendekatan kepada para operator bahwa digitalisasi ini bukan merupakan ancaman bagi mereka, tapi memerlukan kemudahan gitu loh untuk mencapai target-target mereka gitu loh, ya kah? Kalau dulu kan mencari orang maintenance itu kan harus lari gitu ke ke ruang maintenance dan perlu banyak waktu gitu loh, kasihan gitu, apalagi puasa gitu kan. Lagi puasa begini suruh lari ke ke ruang maintenance kan, apalagi di ruang maintenance nggak ada orang kan. Artinya dengan ada kemudahan teknologi tadi gitu loh, kalau ada kerusakan dari HMI langsung bisa ke ruang maintenance dan juga bisa langsung ada short message SMS gitu ataupun ya messaging gitu loh, messenger kepada pejabat yang terkait gitu loh atau petugas yang terkait. Dengan itu memudahkan mereka gitu untuk mencapai tadi gitu loh. Dan mereka nggak perlu capek-capek lagi gitu loh. Itu kira-kira Pak. Dan tadi apa tadi yang terakhir Pak?
Mungkin sudah terjawab juga ya Pak ya mengenai culture antara digitalisasi atau dari manpower-nya. Mungkin bisa disimpulkan dari pertanyaan yang terakhir tersebut bahwa 4.0 sendiri sebenarnya adalah sistem tool ya Pak ya, malahan tool bagi para kolega kita di lapangan untuk membantu mereka sukses ya Pak ya.
Jangan salah kaprah. Tool dulu masuk baru budaya. Itu nggak bisa Pak. Ya. Jadi budaya dulu ya. Bisa paralel juga bisa ya. Bisa juga ya, tapi yang pasti jangan tool dulu gitu. Tapi kalau memang itu perusahaan baru gitu, itu bisa tool dulu bisa karena tadi standar dan konsistensi tadi bisa dibuat karena perusahaan pabrik mereka masih baru gitu ataupun baru buat pabrik itu bisa dilakukan. Tapi kalau perusahaan kita sudah lama, artinya ada budaya di situ yang harus kita pelajari gitu agar dalam digitalisasi ini mereka merasa terbantu, nggak merasa repot gitu, ya kan? Ya, karena mencet dari tabs tadi kan terkadang orang aduh repot banget gitu loh. Tapi kan dengan mencet tab tadi artinya mereka nggak memerlukan effort yang lebih besar gitu untuk mencapai dari target mereka inginkan gitu. Kira-kira itu Pak Iwan.
Baik, siap. Baik, Pak Sabah, mengingat keterbatasan waktu, sementara kita akhiri dulu session Q&A-nya. Terima kasih Pak atas kesempatannya sudah diberikan sharing pengalaman dan showcase floor-nya ya Pak ya, Pak Sabah dan Pak Arwan. Baik, rekan-rekan sekalian, mungkin jika ada pertanyaan yang belum terjawab bisa disampaikan ke host acara PT PPI, nanti akan bantu disampaikan ke panelis masing-masing dan akan dijawab secara terpisah. Dengan demikian saya sudahi dulu acaranya. Sebelum selesai, saya juga mau mengingatkan, mengundang seperti tadi yang sudah disebutkan bahwa pada Oktober tahun ini akan diselenggarakan acara IMT dan FTI 2022 di PRJ Kemayoran, tentunya diselenggarakan oleh PT Pelita Promo Internusa, di mana di dalam acara tersebut tentunya akan ditampilkan teknologi-teknologi terbaru dari vendor-vendor dan pelaku industri Foundry dalam hal material, produksi, maupun tema 4.0 yang baru saja kita bahas hari ini. Menurut saya ini kesempatan baik untuk hadir setelah sekian lama kita belum berjumpa secara fisik, kita catch up dan kita bertemu bersama untuk kelancaran pemulihan ekonomi Indonesia. Sekian saya tutup. waktu dan tempat, saya persilahkan kembali ke Bu Claudi. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Iwan atas panduan serta rangkuman untuk acara hari ini. Saya mewakili PPI ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada para pembicara secara virtual. Pertama-tama, terima kasih banyak kepada Bapak Erwan Yulianto, sehingga kita bisa berkolaborasi bersama. Terima kasih banyak Pak Erwan.
Terima kasih Bu Claudi.
Lalu saya ucapkan juga terima kasih kepada Bapak Iwan Lukito atas panduan Bapak di webinar hari ini, sehingga acara berjalan dengan sukses dan lancar. Terima kasih banyak Pak Iwan.
Terima kasih Bu Claudi.
Next, I would like to thank you to one of our speaker, Mr. Christian. Thank you, Christian, for your great presentation today.
Terima kasih, Claudi. My pleasure.
Terima kasih kami ucapkan juga kepada PT Makmur Meta Graha Dinamika yang sudah mensupport acara ini. Terima kasih banyak pada Pak Andre dan Pak Reza atas kerjasamanya, Pak.
Ya, sama-sama Bu Claudi. Terima kasih juga atas effort dan kesempatan yang telah diberikan sehingga ini bisa berjalan dengan baik ya.
Ya, terima kasih Pak. Dan terima kasih untuk Bapak Sabah Saparian. Terima kasih banyak Pak Sabah sudah berbagi wawasan dan pengalaman mengenai Smart Factory.
Ya,
juga telah...
terima kasih. Terima kasih Bu Claudi. Ya, kita buka pertanyaan lalu Bu Claudi juga. Ya.
Baik Pak. Terima kasih juga untuk Pak Arwan yang sudah memandu kita live dari sana ya Pak, dari factory-nya.
Sama-sama Bu, makasih.
Setelah ini kita akan foto bersama. We are going to have a group photo. I will count 1, 2, 3 to get ready. Just a moment. Oke. Pak Arwan bisa join juga atau?
Pak Arwan lagi setting nih.
Oh, oke. Oke, baik Pak.
Nah, Claudi lanjut aja. Pas Sabah saya kameranya kurang.
Oke. Ya. Silakan. 1, 2, 3. Sudah ya? Oke, terima kasih semuanya. Oke. Di akhir acara nanti akan ada link survei untuk evaluasi webinar hari ini. Kami mohon para peserta webinar dapat mengisi survei tersebut untuk mendapatkan e-sertifikat dan materi presentasi. Link survei akan terbuka otomatis di browser Anda pada saat acara ini selesai dan Anda meninggalkan acara webinar ini. Jika ada pertanyaan mengenai materi hari ini, silakan email ke alamat email yang tertera di layar. Tiba di penghujung acara, saya Claudinia mewakili PPI, tim IMT dan FTI yang bertugas mengucapkan terima kasih atas partisipasi dan antusias peserta dalam mengikuti webinar hari ini. Semoga acara hari ini berkesan dan bermanfaat dalam menambah pengetahuan, mengembangkan skill dan kualitas, serta meningkatkan produktivitas kita untuk bersaing ke depannya. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan dari kami. Sampai bertemu pada webinar selanjutnya dan sampai bertemu di bulan Oktober di IMT dan FTI. Sampai jumpa semuanya. Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bu Claudi.
Terima kasih Bu Claudi dan
Terima kasih
semuanya.
Claudi.
Terima kasih Pak Iwan, Pak Sabah,
Semua ya.
Pak Erwan.
Terima kasih
Pak
semuanya.
Arwan.
Makasih
Salam
Pak Andre.
sehat, kita kuat.
Pak Erwan.
Thank you Pak Andre, Pak Reza,
Thank you.
Christian, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Pak Andre, Pak Reza, terima kasih ya.
Terima kasih Pak Iwan. Telah dibantu.
Siap. Mari izin undur diri Bu Claudi.
Thank you.